Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. How are you? I hope you all are doing well. I am your English teacher. Students, we are on chapter number 8, Emily Leaves Home. This is second session of this chapter. In the first session, we read about David's stay at Steve Ford's home. When David went to Steve Ford's place, Mrs. Steve Ford and Miss Dartle were very happy to see him. Miss Dartle asked to David about the reason of changed behavior of Steve Ford. David replied he doesn't know about it. During the outing, David noticed that Steve Ford was acting as a good companion of Miss Dartle. But Miss Dartle behaved strangely. When Steve Ford requested her to sing a song, she sang with great feeling. Her song was expressing her feelings and thoughts. After this, when Steve Ford tried to close her, she hit him and went away. When David asked Steve Ford about her rude behavior, he replied, I don't know, she is dangerous. Then David said good night to Steve Ford. He said, I will go early morning before you wake up. Steve Ford wanted David to stay longer. He said to David, if we separated for any reason, think of me kindly. David said he will always love him. Next morning, David left before Steve Ford woke up. Okay, students, let's start the chapter to know the further story. Students, open page number 51. As usual, first I'll read a paragraph, then I'll explain it. And before explaining, I'll tell you meaning of difficult words. Let's begin. A light for Emily. I arrived in Yarmouth 2 days later, in the evening, at 10 o'clock. I set out for Mr. Peggotty's house. Rain was falling hard and the night was stormy. I saw a light shining inside the house when I arrived. What a very pleasant surprise, Mr. David, said Mr. Peggotty with a happy face. Sit down, sir. Students, this paragraph states that after 2 days, David arrived at Yarmouth. At 10 o'clock night, David reached at Mr. Peggotty's house. It was raining heavily. That was a stormy night. When David arrived, he saw a light was shining inside the house. When Mr. Peggotty saw him, he was very happy. It was a surprise for him. He asked David to sit down. Let's move towards next paragraph. The house looked very comfortable indeed. The fire was burning brightly. Peggotty sat in her old chair as if she had never got up from it. Mrs. Gummidge was sitting in her corner of the room. Emily was not there. Well, Peggotty, how are you, old woman? I said, giving her a kiss. Presently, Mr. Peggotty looked at the clock and got up. He picked up a candle and put it on the shelf by the window. Students, comfortable means providing physical ease and relaxation. Indeed is used to emphasize a statement or response confirming something already suggested. This paragraph states that when David reached at Peggotty's house, he found it comfortable. Fire was burning there. Peggotty was sitting on her old chair as she never got up from it. Mrs. Gummidge was also sitting in her corner where she always sat. Emily was not at home. David asked to Peggotty how she was and he kissed her. Mr. Peggotty washed time and stood up. He put a candle near the window. Let's move on. Now the house is lit up. That's a custom of ours, he said cheerfully. Are you wondering why the candle is there? It's for our little Emily. I'll explain. If I'm here when she is coming home, I put the light by the window. With great laughter, he continued. That does two things. Emily says, there's home. And Emily also says, my uncle's there. Because if I'm not there, I never put a light on. You are a baby, said Peggotty. She was clearly very fond of him. Even so, students, lit up means to brighten or illuminate something. Custom means a traditional and widely accepted way of behaving or doing something that is specific to a particular society, place, or time. Cheerfully means in a cheerful way or happily. Fond means having an affection or liking for. Wonder means a feeling of amazement and admiration caused by something beautiful, remarkable, or unfamiliar. Students, this paragraph states that when Mr. Peggotty put the candle near the window, the house was brightened. He asked to David, are you thinking amazingly why I put the candle near the window? Then he said, that is our custom. He also said, let me explain. If I am at home and it's time to come to Emily's home, I put the light by the window. He told two reasons of his habit. First, Emily knew there is home, and she also knew my uncle is there. He also said if I am not at home, I did not put a light on. Miss Peggotty likened Mr. Peggotty to a baby, and she said Emily really liked Mr. Peggotty. Okay, students, let's move on. A great big man like me. Do I like a baby? Said Mr. Peggotty, laughing loudly at the idea. Perhaps I am, but not to look at. I don't care. I know. When she is married, I shall still put the candle by the window, and I shall sit in front of the fire, pretending she'll come, but here she is now. Students, perhaps is used to express uncertainty or possibility. Pretend means behave so as to make it appear. This paragraph states that when Miss Peggotty said to Mr. Peggotty, you are a baby. After listening this, Mr. Peggotty laughed and asked to David, do I like a baby? He was enjoying the Peggotty's statement. He also said when Emily will be married, I'll still put the candle by the window as I do it now. And I'll sit in front of the fire and wait for her. Okay, students, let's move on. Ham came in, but he was alone. He had a large hat on to keep dry in the rain. It was pulled down over his face. Where is Emily? Said Mr. Peggotty. Ham suddenly saw me sitting in the room. He made a sign with his hat as if to say that Emily was outside. Mr. David, will you come outside a minute? Come and see what Emily and I have got to show you, he said. Students, this paragraph states that when Mr. Peggotty was expressing his love for Emily, Ham came in. Students, Ham was gone to pick Emily, but he came back alone. He was wearing a big rain hat to keep himself dry. He pulled down his hat over his face. When Mr. Peggotty saw him, he asked about Emily. At the same time, Ham saw David there. He made a sign by his hat to express that Emily was outside. Then Ham requested to Mr. David to come outside. He said, Emily and I want to show you something. Let's move on. We went out. As I passed him at the door, I noticed his face was white. Ham, what's the matter? Mr. Davy. Oh, how he cried. He was so unhappy. I do not know what I thought. I could only look at him. Ham, poor good man, please tell me what's the matter. Students, this paragraph states that when Ham requested to David to come outside, David came with him. He noticed the white and worried face of Ham at the door. Then he asked about the problem. Ham was crying badly and looking unhappy. David asked him again about the reason of his cry and unhappiness. Students, now I'll explain today's lecture in Urdu. डेविड स्टीव फोर्थ के घर से रवाना होने के 2 दिन बाद यरमाउथ पहुंचा और रात 10 बजे वो मिस्टर पैगटी के घर जाने के लिए रवाना हुआ। उस वक्त बहुत तेज बारिश हो रही थी और वो एक तूफानी रात थी। जब डेविड पैगटीज के घर पहुंचा तो उसने देखा कि घर के अंदर रोशनी है। मिस्टर पैगटी उसे देखकर बहुत खुश हुए और उसे बैठने के लिए कहा। मिस पैगटी अपनी चेयर पर ऐसे ही बैठी हुई थी कि जैसे वो वहां से कभी उठी ही ना हो। मिसेस गमेज भी रूम के कॉर्नर पर वहीं बैठी थी जहां वो अक्सर बैठी हुई नजर आती थी। एमिली मौजूद नहीं थी। डेविड पैगटी के पास गया और उनसे मिलकर उनका हाल पूछा। मिस्टर पैगटी ने टाइम देखा और कैंडल उठाकर विंडो के साथ शेल्फ पर रख दी। उन्होंने डेविड को बताया कि ये हमारी रिवायत है और वो डेविड से कहने लगे कि तुम हैरान हो रहे होगे कि मैंने ये कैंडल वहां क्यों रखी। इसका जवाब उन्होंने खुद ही दिया कि ये हमारी लिटिल एमिली के लिए है। मैं एक्सप्लेन करता हूँ, जब मैं घर पे होता हूँ और एमिली आने वाली होती है तो मैं कैंडल उठाकर विंडो के साथ रख देता हूँ। हंसते हुए उन्होंने कहा कि इससे 2 चीजें होती हैं। एक तो एमिली को मालूम हो जाता है कि घर यहाँ है, दूसरा ये कि मेरे अंकल घर पर मौजूद हैं, क्योंकि जब मैं नहीं होता तो यहाँ पर लाइट रोशन नहीं करता। स्टूडेंट्स, मिस पैगटी ने मिस्टर पैगटी की बातें सुनकर कहा कि तुम बिल्कुल बच्चे हो। ये सुनकर मिस्टर पैगटी हंसने लगे और अपनी सिस्टर के इस कॉम्प्लीमेंट को एंजॉय करने लगे। उन्होंने मजीद कहा कि जब एमिली की शादी हो जाएगी, जब भी मैं ये कैंडल इसी तरह से विंडो के पास रखूंगा। हैम अंदर आया तो वो अकेला था। मिस्टर पैगटी ने उससे एमिली के मुतालिक पूछा। हैम ने डेविड को रूम में बैठे हुए देख लिया। उसने गर्दन से ऐसे इशारा किया कि जैसे वो ये कहना चाह रहा हो कि एमिली बाहर है। इसके बाद हैम ने डेविड से बाहर आने के लिए रिक्वेस्ट की और कहा कि प्लीज 1 मिनट के लिए बाहर आएं और देखें कि मैं और एमिली आपको कुछ दिखाना चाहते हैं। जब वो दोनों बाहर आए तो डेविड ने हैम का सफेद पड़ता हुआ चेहरा देखा और पूछा कि क्या प्रॉब्लम है। हैम बुरी तरह रोने लगा। वो बहुत उदास था। डेविड ने दोबारा उससे पूछा कि प्लीज बताओ आखिर क्या मसला है। Okay students, inshallah we will continue this chapter in the next session to know why Ham was crying and where was Emily. Now move towards exercises. Students, we have done question number 1 of this chapter in the first session. Now you can see question number 2 on your screen. Question is, why did Mr. Peggotty always light a candle by the window? Answer is, Mr. Peggotty lit a candle by the window for little Emily to come easily at home by the side of the light, and it also showed that her uncle Mr. Peggotty was at home and waiting for her. Students, you can see the reference to context of this chapter on your screen. Now the house is lit up. That's a custom of ours, he said cheerfully. Students, we have read this line in today's lecture. Now first tell me who spoke this line to whom? Yes, Mr. Peggotty spoke this line to David. Students, all of you know that how to do reference to context. First we will write reference, then we will explain the given lines. So let's do the reference. Reference is the above line has been taken from the chapter Emily Leaves Home of the novel David Copperfield, written by Charles Dickens. This line is spoken by Mr. Peggotty to David. Students, here is the explanation of given lines. Mr. Peggotty was very much attached to Emily. He made it a custom in his house to light a candle in the evening and to keep it by the window, so that Emily might see the way and come home easily. Candlelight also indicated that Mr. Peggotty also present at home. Students, read today's lesson thoroughly. I hope all of you have done the previous work. Now first make index, then do question number 2 and reference to context in your English literature copy. Inshallah, we will continue this chapter in the next session. Thank you. Till then, take care of yourself and your family. Allah Hafiz.